All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. So today we're going to be continuing on with World War II. Okay. Now today's lesson it's pretty interesting. We're going to be talking about the German invasion of Britain, and then we're going to talk about how the U.S. got involved in World War II. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at your warm up picture. I should say pictures because there's three of them there. Now, uh, the question's asking you look at these propaganda posters, the one on the left, the one on the middle, the one on the right. Okay. And on your paper, I put on the bottom there which one's German, which one's British, which one's American. Now, the question I'm asking you is this: from your own perspective, from what you see, which one do you think was more effective in getting the people to either, join the war, join the cause? Which one got people to care about the war and help out their country? So again, look at the German, look at the British, look at the Americans, and tell me which one do you think did the better job? Okay. Let me move this uh, camera. There we go. So, which one do you feel did a better job or think did a better job? Okay. So, pause the video, write your response because we're moving on in three, two, one. All right. So, the Royal Air Force, which is the RAF, defeated the German Air Force, the Luftwaffe, in the Battle of Britain. Okay. So, if you look at that map, uh, the countries in blue are controlled by the Nazis, and the Axis powers. You know, the countries in red were countries going against, the Nazis. So these were the Allied, and the countries in white were basically um, neutral. They didn't want any part of the war. They didn't agree with either side. They were just like, you guys do you, don't involve us. So if you look at the map, yeah, a lot of Europe was controlled by the Nazis or the Axis powers. Okay, uh, and they and again look at France and Belgium and all these countries right near Britain, Denmark and some of that. They could not invade Britain. They tried bombing runs and some of that. It didn't work. The British people stood firm and basically said, "Bring it on, Hitler! Whatever you can give us, we can take it." And he didn't kill their spirit. And because the bombings did not work, because the Luftwaffe, the air support, got beaten by the British Air Force, this stopped the invasion of Britain. Hitler basically said, "Okay, you know what? Let's stop. Okay, let's worry about Britain later on. We'll get to them later on. Okay, they may have beaten us now, but we'll find a way to get them." Now, this could not have come at a better time because Britain was basically almost completely out of resources, meaning they were out of ammunition, fuel, um, you know, metal for their repairing the ships and planes and things like that. They're basically out of almost everything, coal and food and things like that. It was pretty bad. Now, Churchill asked and got needed resources from the US in this thing called the Lend Lease Act. Basically, the United States would lend things to Britain, whether it was machinery, tools, resources, food, things like that, or we would lease it to them. We would, kind of charge them rent for it to use our planes and boats and things like that. Okay. Now, 1941, Hungary, Romania, and Bulgaria joined the Axis Party. Okay. At that same time, Germany basically took over completely Yugoslavia and Greece. They had no chance. They stood firm. They gave them hell, but the British just ran over them like nothing. Now, Hitler had a new goal. Well, he couldn't take over Britain. No problem. Let's invade and take over Russia. Now, I'm sure some of you guys are like, well, didn't you say like a couple videos ago that they had an agreement? You don't attack us, we won't attack you. Yes. And this is the thing you're going to learn about Hitler. He doesn't care. Hitler will say, "Oh, yes, I believe in this. Oh, I believe in that." He'll say what he needs to say in front of your face, but in the back, he'll gladly stab you. Okay? So he'll tell people what they want to hear and then do what he's got to do. Because to him, the ends justify the means. As long as he comes out on top, it's all good. Now, in Europe, speaking of Hitler, his primary goal was taking effect. They're rounding up all the Jewish people in Europe, whether it's Yugoslavia, Poland, Germany, France, Greece, Italy, wherever, Croatia, wherever there are Jew people, they grounded them up and put them in little pockets, concentration camps and things like that, ghettos. And this is where he puts out the final solution. It basically is the extermination of the Jewish people throughout Europe. Everywhere that the Germans have taken control in Europe, they're going to execute those Jewish people. So again, everywhere you see in blue, those Jewish people are rounded up and going to be executed. And in 3 years, 4 million Jewish people would die, either from gas, um, being burned, starved to death, or just straight up executed. Some Jewish people were experimented on and killed and things like that. So yeah, it was really, really bad. June 2nd, 1941, Operation Barbarossa begins. Now, what is that? It's a code name to take over Russia. That's the operation's name. Now, here's the thing. Russia had more tanks and planes than Germany. Okay? That's the good news. They had more tanks and more planes. But here's the bad news. Those tanks and planes were older. They weren't new. They were basically made right after World War One, and they were not built as well as the German tanks, the Panzers and things like that, or the Luftwaffe. They were not that great. So it's like, yeah, you have more, but they're outdated, you know, and they're not built as well. So in a month, the German troops marched 200 miles into Russian territory. Okay, which is quite a bit. Now, this is where something really interesting happens. Hitler and his generals, they start arguing and they start seeing things differently. Now, I've had a lot of students in the past tell me, well, wasn't Hitler in charge the whole time? He was in charge of all of Germany, but the guys who basically did the attack, coordinated the attacks, how to attack and win, and things like that, that was all the generals. The Blitzkrieg, that was the generals. That wasn't Hitler. Hitler didn't think about that. He didn't think, oh, we need to invade Poland from here, 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 send 1.5 million troops and things like that. No, that was the generals who did that. Taking over France and things like that. That was all the generals. But now Hitler's like, I'm the Fuhrer. I'm so much smarter. I'm the ultimate leader. You guys need to listen to me. And I'm telling you, this is how we're going to attack Russia. Now, there was some arguing between Hitler and his generals. They were telling him, sir, you don't understand. People have done that in the past. Napoleon has tried that tactic. It didn't work for him. It's not going to work for us. These guys know their military history. They know war tactics. Hitler, yeah, he served in World War One, but he doesn't know. So while they're arguing, the German invasion kind of stalls. They're kind of like, well, what are we going north? We're going south. We're going straight. I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing? They're getting conflicted reports, so they're kind of at a standstill. And finally, when Hitler says, "No, I'm the ruler and this and that," you need to listen to me, and he really puts his foot down and basically um, threatens some people, they start listening. So some generals are just like, okay, okay, it's gonna cost us a lot of men's lives, but yeah, okay, fine, you do it your way. Now, by the time those German soldiers start marching in October, this is when the Russian winter kicks in. And if you've been with me in the previous months and some of that about other wars in Russia, you'll remember about those Russian winters. They're not good. All right. Now, let's go a little bit more east. In the southern part of Asia, Japan invades French Indochina. Okay. Now, why is that significant? Well, because the US and British had some troops nearby, and they didn't like that the Japanese just basically took over Indochina. Now, why did they just take over it? Because the French were taken over by the Nazis, remember? The Nazis put up a puppet government. And when the Japanese said, "Hey, France, can we take over Indochina?" basically asking for permission, the Nazis made sure that the French government said, "Yeah, it's okay, take over it, that's fine." And that's what happened. So a lot of Americans and British were like, "Yeah, that's not legit." You know, your buddies, the Nazis, just basically made France give you permission. So what happened was American and British embargoed goods going to Japan. Now, why is that significant? Because you have to remember, Japan is an island. They can't grow everything they have or everything they need, to say. Things like, excuse me one second, get my leg out there. Sorry. So things like oil, they really can't drill for oil too much in Japan. Same thing with getting copper, steel, things like that. They can't get it. It's only not grown. They can't make it from their island, so they have to get it from other countries. So what the United States and France did was basically have ships around to stop those materials from going in there. Okay. Now, in response to that, Japan invades Malaya. Now, who cares about Malaya? Well, the United States does, because that is where we get a lot of our tin, rubber, and rice. And that kind of stalls our economy because, again, tin is things like your any type of canned food. Hey, back in the day, they used to use tin for that. You know, rubber for like tires and things like that, and then rice is staple in a lot of people's meals. So the U.S. said, you want to take over Malaya? No problem. They basically cut off all of Japan's oil supply. They made sure that Japan got no oil. Japan got 70% of their oil from us. And the United States made sure that the other 30% didn't, those countries didn't give it to Japan. Now, Japan only had like 3 years worth of oil on reserve. But since we're going there in war, they needed the oil for gas, to oil up their machines, their ships, their planes, and things like that. So they're kind of scared, and they're kind of like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, U.S. Let's talk. Let's talk. Let's sit down and have a discussion." So we go into peace talks with Japan. Okay. Now, if you look at this map right here, That thick arrow that goes to the right, that little islands you see, the little dots you see, that's Hawaii. Okay. And that's going to play a role right now because on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, at 6 a.m., U.S. patrol ships spot a Japanese submarine's periscope popping out the water. They radioed in. Okay. Okay, we saw a submarine. Is that one of ours? No. No one else should be out. No one else should be out here except maybe us in Japan. 7:30 in the morning. Basically, we get a wire coming in from Japan saying peace talks are over and an attack is imminent. I mean, an attack's going to happen. Now, thing is with the United States, they don't know where. 25 minutes after that message is sent, the attack on Pearl Harbor begins. Now, I want you to realize this. Look at from where Japan is, where all those lines are coming from. That's the island Japan. Do you think it takes 25 minutes for a ship to go from Japan to Hawaii? It doesn't even take a plane now to get 25 minutes to go from Hawaii to Japan. Japan had sent ships out weeks in advance. So, yeah, this whole peace talks was all BS. They were ready to attack. Now, the Japan's captain, the guy who was in charge of the plane attack, his name is Mitsuo Fuchida. This guy was basically told, okay, you're in charge. You're going to fly really low. You're going to fly low because there's a new invention called radar. And if you go fly low enough, the radar won't pick you up. Now, once you fly low in Hawaii, if the US hasn't started shooting at you or attacking you, give the order. If you have the element of surprise, give the orders to attack. And the code word is Tora. So Fuchida flies low. I mean, we're talking low. Um, so low that people who saw the planes could see the red dot, the symbol of Japan, on the planes. If you want to watch something like a visual of it, watch the movie Pearl Harbor on that part. That's like the one thing in that movie they actually got really right. How low they flew, how they attacked and everything. That part they did well. So Fuchida's going low. Nothing's happening. They get to Pearl Harbor. He breaks radio silence and says, Tora, Tora, Tora. And all hell breaks loose. Okay. Now, here's the thing the American soldiers, a lot of them are sleeping. A lot of them are sleeping. Some are barely getting up. Some guys are, doing their chores, cleaning the decks, preparing breakfast, things like that, you know. But a lot of guys are sleeping. And once the bombs start dropping, the torpedoes are launched and things like that, everyone starts coming out of the ships and things like that. The Japanese send two waves of planes. In those two waves, there's 353 Japanese planes attacking. Only 29 of those planes are shot down. In the attack, because it was a sneak attack, it was a surprise attack, the Japanese really destroyed our fleet. We lost nearly 100 ships, including three really big key ships, the Oklahoma, the Utah, and the Arizona. Okay. The attacks lasted for about 2 hours, and in that time, 2,404 people lost their lives. This was the biggest loss of American life up until September 11th. But before that, it was this. Okay. And it just caught everyone by surprise. And the Americans were just dumbfounded because, again, people were really kind of sure that hey, at least we were in peace talks with Japan, and this surprise attack really shook people up. Now, here's the other thing too. While Pearl Harbor was happening, Japan was attacking other places as well. So again, that map you see, they're attacking other places. Guam, Midway, Wake Island. They bomb them, they attack them, they invade it. The next day, Hong Kong, the Philippines, and Singapore are all attacked. Now, again, it takes longer than a day for ships to go to those places you see on that map there. Japan planned this out for a long time. They basically playing a game of chess, making sure their pieces were in the right spot before they attacked. Basically, all the islands you see on there where the arrows go to, all those islands, all those places were taken over by December 26th. So basically, um, less than 3 weeks. Now, right away, the United States declares war on Japan. And the U.S., a senator had a really good idea that we should train Navajo soldiers to be code talkers. Now, why Navajo? Because the thing is, the Native American language is indigenous to here. Nowhere in the world does anyone speak Choctaw or Cherokee or Navajo. That's all in the US, and nobody knows that language anywhere else. So, once the call was made that, hey, we need Native American soldiers, specifically Navajo, you know, 420 of 20 of them signed up, and they would see action in the Pacific, not in Europe. Okay. Now, February 19th, 1942, President Roosevelt signs Executive Order 9066. What this order meant was that Japanese Americans were rounded up and forced to move from their homes to these camps in the middle of the country. A lot of these Japanese Americans lived on the West Coast, Oregon, Washington, California. Now, here's a question I get quite a bit. Why the Japanese? Because people were, in a sense, prejudiced against the Japanese because we were attacked by Japan. Okay. Now, they try to give this BS reason saying, oh, it's for national security. We're joining the war. We need to round up people we think are suspicious. Well, why not German Americans? Why not Italian Americans? We're going to war against them too. So why not them? Because again, there was a prejudice, there was a hatred towards Japanese American because we were bombed by Japan. Okay. Now, just like the Japanese did a secret attack on us, we were having a secret attack on them. And the sad thing is, we only had several ships and a handful of planes to do the secret attack. But man, we kept that thing secret. The US planes and the ships got as close as they could to Japan without tipping off to them that what we were doing. Problem was the ships carrying the planes could only get to a certain distance. Um, and the thing is, the planes didn't have enough fuel to come back to those ships. So those pilots and the crew knew this was a one-way mission. You're not going to come back. So you either had to crash in the water in Japan or in China if you could. So they took off because again, they want revenge. They want to attack Japan. So these planes went and they bombed Tokyo, Kobe, Yokohama, and Nagoya. They bombed them and then they started going to where they could. Some planes crashed in the water, some planes crashed in Japan, but a lot of them made it to China. Okay. Now, a lot of those guys, I mean, think almost all of them, were captured by Chinese soldiers, underground Chinese soldiers. Now, why is that significant? Because Japan was invading China, and China saw our soldiers and planes coming in, so they thought, oh, these are Japanese. So they went to there and they tried to capture them. And once they realized, hey, you're not Japanese, they're like, who are you guys? What are you doing here? Are you invading our country too? And one of the commanders, Doolittle, he was like, whoa, 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 we bombed Japan. We hate Japan. We bombed Tokyo. Now, there was some like communication differences, but the Chinese realized, wait, you guys hate Japan too? You don't like Japan? They're like, no, we bombed them. We boop Japan, Tokyo, uh, Nagoya, Kobe. And like, oh, you guys bombed them. Oh, hell yeah. High five, brother. You know, so they helped our soldiers get away from the Japanese soldiers. They helped our guys avoid capture because, again, they hated Japan just as much as our soldiers hated Japan at that time. Now, April 9th, Japanese soldiers captured Bataan. Now, Bataan is in the Philippines. We had a commander there named General MacArthur, and he was basically taken out of there by President Roosevelt. He was told, you need to get out of there. You leave your men behind. We need you. And he was appointed the commander, supreme commander in the Pacific. And he told his men before he left, I shall return. Now, he had to leave 78,000 men, not just American soldiers, but Philippine soldiers. And once he left, the Japanese took over the island and they made them march like 60 some miles to their prison camp. And these guys died. Thousands of them died from malnutrition, disease, exhaustion, physical abuse, and some were just executed. Now, I'm sure you're probably thinking, well, what? 60 some miles. Couldn't they just take them in a car? No, because for one, look how many 78,000 people. That's a lot. Two, this was going through the jungle. And the thing is, some people tried to escape. Now, what they would do, what the Japanese would do, instead of executing the person who tried to run away, sometimes what I've heard is they would execute the person in front of them and behind them. And basically tell the people, if you try to escape, we're going to kill the people near you. So basically, the people around you, your life was in their hands. Okay. Now, May 6th, Philippines is completely under Japan's control. On May 7th and 8th, the U.S. gets a footing in the Pacific when they have the Battle of the Coral Sea and they win. Now the U.S. has a footing. They have a base of operations right there, and then they can spread on. June 4th through the 7th, the U.S. cryptographers, guys who are breaking codes and stuff like that, deciphered a coded message from Japan. And they basically got a message saying, we have a plan. If we capture Hawaii, okay, the state of Hawaii, it's still pretty weak. They're still rebuilding their ships and their planes. Um, they're still grieving over their losses. You know, if we go there and take a bunch of ships, we can surround the island and then we can hold it hostage. And when we hold it hostage, we can basically tell the U.S. to surrender and leave the war, and then we'll leave the Hawaii. If not, if they even send ships over or planes, we'll bomb it. Okay. Now, the U.S. intercepted this message, deciphered it, and read it in the message, and then they said, okay, yes, we have limited ships and limited planes, but we need to stop Japan from getting to Hawaii. So at the Midway Islands, there were all the American ships and planes waiting for them right there. and the Battle of Midway began. Japan had no idea we were there waiting for them. They had no idea we broke the code, and we went at it. Japan lost 3,500 men, 4 carriers, a cruiser ship, and 332 planes. The U.S. lost 307 men, a carrier, a destroyer, and about 150 planes. But the United States won. Okay. Now, why is this Battle Midway significant? Well, for one, we stopped that plan. But two, this is a big one. This is the first time in 350 years that the Japan's navy had lost a battle. Now, that should tell you something. All right, so here's my question to you. If you were a prisoner of war, what would you do? Would you fight back against your captors? Would you try to escape? Or would you do nothing? Now, remember, if you are caught or if one of your captors is hurt in any way, you and a lot of your men will either be tortured or killed. So, would you risk it? And why? So, if you say, yes, I would fight back or I would try to escape, tell me why you would do that. If you say, no, I wouldn't do anything, I would do nothing, tell me why. Why would that? Why would you do that instead? Explain to me what's going through your mind for that. Okay, so uh, once you finish this question, you're done with this lesson. So hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you enjoyed it. With that being said, guys, you take care. You be safe, and I'll see you guys later. Okay.